Hello, hello, hello. This is Deuteronomy Bible Study Part 2. We will be doing chapters 11 through 20. So we're going to start off with Deuteronomy chapter 11. Basically, going to be broken down to love and obedience rewarded. So tells them, love the Lord your God, keep his charge, his statutes, his judgments, and his commands always. For today I do not speak with your children who have not known or seen his greatness, what he did to Egypt, how he parted the Red Sea, what he did in the wilderness for you. But he tells them that your eyes have seen. Therefore you shall keep every command I give you today, that you may be strong, and take the land, a land flowing of milk and honey. They say this a lot. And it's not literally like the rivers are flowing with milk and honey. It's like the land is that prosperous of a land that it's like milk and honey. This land is not like Egypt. It is of hills and valleys, which drink water from the rain of heaven. It's a beautiful way that they describe it. Lord God's eyes are always on this land. He shall bless them big time if hold true to the commands he gives. Things from luscious grass fields for livestock to rain for the crops. Take heed to not serve other gods, lowercase g. If so, you will perish quickly from the good land which the Lord is giving you. Teach all these things to your kids, and write these on the doorposts of your homes and on the gates. If you keep the love for your Lord God, he will drive out all nations against you. Every place every place your foot places will be yours. No man shall stand against you. They are told, behold, I set a blessing and a curse upon you. The blessing is to keep the commands of God. The curse is to turn from him to other gods. So they are being told again and again and again. God knew that obedience is only brought apart repeating. That's why a lot of things have been repeating through the first 5 books of the Pentateuch. And wickedness is always here. They needed to be reminded. Think how many times they had switched. That's why they're being reminded. We're going to get on with Deuteronomy chapter 12 here. Deuteronomy chapter 12 is a prescribed place of worship and beware of false gods. So Moses continues to tell them, these are the statutes and judgments which you shall be careful to observe, whether under green trees or on mountains high. Destroy the places of worship in this land that are to their gods. These are not pleasing to the Lord. Destroy their names, their altars, their images, etc. He's explaining to them all of it. You shall not worship me with any of these. God doesn't want to be worshipped with anything other than your worship and praise. He doesn't need images. He doesn't need carved, idols. That's what he's trying to tell them. You shall go where I make a place of worship for you. All offerings will be here. Here is where you shall eat before the Lord and rejoice. You shall not do what we are doing now, what is right in our eyes. You have not come to rest in the inheritance which the Lord your God is giving you. After you cross and all is done, then you may rest from all your enemies in safety. Then a place of worship and offerings, and you shall rejoice there. All of you, whether servant or Levite, tells them, don't offer sacrifices anywhere but where the Lord chooses. But in your gates you may slaughter and eat meat within your gates. Just don't eat the blood, pour it out to the earth. You can't eat within the gates the offerings or the tithe of your grain. They must be eaten before the Lord in a place he chooses. Don't forget the Levites, reminding them, don't forget the Levites again. Remember, eat no blood, for it is life. Observe and obey them. Then they are warned that the false gods on the other side don't worship the Lord your God in the manner they do towards their gods, for the Lord hates what they do. They burn their children at altars for their gods. Pretty sad, man. Children's sacrifice had been around It's basically a form of abortion almost, even though they're older. They're not technically aborting them while they're still in belly, but it's still like you're getting rid of a child's life, man. This stuff been going on for a long time. We're gonna get on to Deuteronomy chapter 13. This is a really small chapter, actually. It is the punishment of the apostates. So then the Israelites, by this point, they are told if a prophet among you is to rise and tells you of a vision he has. He's basically telling them how to discern it or whatnot. And a sign or a wonder comes to pass, and he says, let's go follow another God which you have not known, and let us serve him. You shall not listen to the words of him or his dream, for God is testing you to see if you love him with all your heart and soul. Fear the Lord your God and obey his commands. Always obey God's commands only. I mean, the Lord our God, his commands are here for a reason. Then that prophet should be put to death for trying to turn you. Then it speaks of if your brother or the son of your mother, your son or your daughter, the wife of your bosom, your friend who is as your own soul, try to turn you to other gods, then stone them to death. You shall not consent to him, listen to him, nor shall your eye pity him, nor shall you spare him. If someone in your city is spreading these lies of another god, seek that city out and strike them with the edge of the sword and the livestock. Take all the plunder and burn it within the city. It shall be a heap of ash. I will multiply you if you follow these commands. They're pretty stern commands, but by this point, there's more people worshiping these other gods than God. So if you just take heed to what he's saying here, it's not that he is like such a mean God. He is a vengeful God, but he's doing what had to be made, because Israel is really small, man, and they hadn't had a land established yet. So that's the reason why a lot of these things happen. A lot of people don't like reading the Old Testament, especially the first 5 books, because of the vulgarity of it. But man, there's a lot of theological stuff to study in the first 5 books of the Pentateuch. So take them serious. I'm going to go on to Deuteronomy chapter 14. This is a little bit of a bigger one. This is the improper mourning, clean and unclean meat, and the tithing principles. So they are um, So they are told, you are the children of the Lord your God. You shall not cut yourself or shave the front of your head for the dead. I guess people were doing this as forms of mourning over a death, and they're being told that this is the improper way to do it. For you are a treasure to God above all. Then speaks of foods, unclean and clean. It's repeating a lot of things it said before, but he's reminding them that eat the ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle, the roe deer, the wild goat, the mountain goat, the antelope, the mountain sheep. Eat all the animals that have cloven hooves or split hooves into 2 parts and chew chud, which is grass. But do not eat the camels, the hare, the rock hyrax, for they chew chud, but they're unclean. Pigs are unclean. Don't eat the flesh or touch the dead. All in the water that has fins or scales are clean. All that don't aren't. All clean birds you may eat except the eagle, vulture, buzzard, red kite, falcon, the kite after their kinds, every raven after its kind, ostrich, the short-eared owl, the seagull, the hawk after its kind, the little owl, the screech owl, the white owl, the jackdaw, the charon vulture, the fisher owl, the stork, the heron after its kind, the hoopie, and the bat. Also, every creeping thing that flies is unclean. You shall eat all clean birds. You shall not eat anything that dies of itself. You may sell or give it to an alien among you. You shall tithe all the increase in your grain that the field produces year by year. If you can't carry the tithe to the place that the Lord picks, then money is to be used in its place. Don't forsake the Levites. At the end of the 3rd year you shall bring out the tithe of your produce of that year and store it. And the Levites who have no inheritance with you, the stranger and the fatherless and the widow, who are in your gates, may come and eat and be satisfied, that the Lord your God may bless you. Repeating a lot of things from Leviticus on. I mean, but you got to think about his point. A lot of these people, they were all kids or had been conceived during the time, I imagine. But everyone that had heard the Ten Commandments from Mount Sinai, except Moses, Joshua, and Caleb, are dead by this point. So they have to be reminded. We're getting on to Deuteronomy chapter 15. And it's a small chapter. It is debts canceled every 7 years, and generosity to the poor, the law concerning the bondservants, and the law concerning the firstborn animals. I know it seems like there's a lot, but really, once you look at the chapter, they're all in very small portions. Then it tells them at the end of every 7 years, debts are canceled, kind of like how we get our usually credits canceled every 7 years. But after 7 years, if a foreigner, then they still need to pay, even after 7 years. But you shall not give up your claim to what is owed to your brother. Then it speaks of the poor, no matter what, even if it's the 7th year, lend out a hand to the poor. Your heart should not be grieved if you do this, for the Lord your God will bless you. If a Hebrew man or a woman is sold to you after the 7th year, they are free. You must not let them go empty handed. You should remember that I saved you from the hand of Egypt. And then it goes on to the firstborn. All firstborn flock and herd you shall sanctify to the Lord. You shall eat this in front of the Lord where he chooses. But if it has a defect in it, you shall not sacrifice it. And remember, do not eat the blood, for blood is life. Deuteronomy chapter 16 is the Passover reviewed, and the Feast of Weeks reviewed, the Feast of Tabernacles reviewed, and the justice must be administered. So by this point, Moses is re-explaining the Passover, the importance of the Passover. So he reminds them to do the Passover on the month of Abib, or April, the month that you were brought out of Egypt. 7 days shall you eat no leavened bread with it. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread with it. This is the bread of the affliction. None of the meat you sacrifice shall sit out till morning. This stuff is said back in Exodus and all of it. You can't just sacrifice anywhere within your gates. It must be where the Lord has instituted. 6 days of unleavened bread, then the 7th day hold a sacred assembly to the Lord your God with no work being done. So then he explains that at the time of the sickle to the grain, you shall count 7 weeks for yourself. Then you shall keep the feast of the weeks to the Lord your God with a free will offering. Rejoice before the Lord your God, all of you. Then the Feast of Tabernacles. Once you gather the stuff together, you shall rejoice, all of you. 7 days you shall keep a sacred feast to the Lord your God. 3 times a year you shall appear before the Lord in a place where he has chosen. You shall not appear empty handed, for every man shall give his able. Then appoint judges and officers within your gates, so that judgment shall be judged. Take or take to bribe or do not take bribes, for it blinds the eye and twists the word of truth. No wooden images or pillars. Man, that bribe thing is true. It can really think of how many times in today's society, any court case, somebody's bribed, everything immediately goes out the door. This stuff was also happening back in the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, happened in Deuteronomy. That's why they're talking about it, because people were bribing to get the word twisted, the word of truth twisted. Deuteronomy chapter 17. This is kind of a small chapter too. It is justice must be administered continued. It's continuing on from the end of where I left off on chapter 16, and it also talks about the principles of governing kings. So it tells them not to sacrifice a bull or a sheep with defect, for this is an abomination to the Lord your God. Then speaks of, if you find any one person in your gates that the Lord has given you, worshipping other gods, lowercase g, then you shall stone them to death, man or woman. No death if only one witness, though. It must be at least two or three, because you can imagine one person can say somebody's doing wrong, but nobody else seen it. But if there's more than one person that's seen it, then it really is true. The witness are the first to throw the stones, then the rest of you. If a problem arises and you can't determine judgment, then take it to the priest and the Levites and the judges that are appointed. They will give you the judgment. If you still don't carry it out, bring it to the Lord. Then that man shall die. Away with the evil. All people shall hear and fear and no longer act against. Then you may place a king over all, one appointed by God. He must not be a foreigner, should not multiply horses or wives for yourself, or say, go to Egypt and multiply horses. Don't accumulate money. Do not turn your people back with or which the way they came. And all kings shall make a copy of the book of laws, which is the first 5 books that I'm reading: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. He is to read it all of his life so he don't turn from God. He's wanting to make sure when a king gets appointed to this land of milk and honey that they don't turn from God. But sadly, if you've read the Bible enough and you pay attention to the world now, it still happens. Deuteronomy chapter 18. Man, we're getting done with this pretty quickly. This is the portion of the priests and the Levites avoid wicked customs, a new prophet like Moses. This is basically how you can describe this chapter, this small chapter. It reminds us that the priests and the Levites and all the tribes of Levi have no inheritance with Israel. It speaks of the offerings that they shall give, but by this point, the author Moses has definitely impounded the offerings into your head. He has constantly told them between all different offerings, repeatedly. It speaks then of don't be involved with people that make his sons or daughters pass through the fire, or witchcraft, or etc. These are the wicked customs that we're talking about. Don't be like the ones that will be destroyed pretty much for serving other gods than your Lord God. The Lord will rise up another within you when I die. Moses is telling them that when I die, there will be another me. If any prophet speaks of any other gods, they shall die. Then he tells them how to determine who is a prophet of the Lord or not. They will come to pass what they say, if they are saying it is from the Lord or not. If not, of course, then they are a false prophet and do not listen to them. Not easy today to tell apart like it was back then. That's why we really need to pray heavy to the Lord for discernment and wisdom to know, because today it's a lot harder to determine a false prophet than it was back then. Deuteronomy chapter 19. Wrapping up with this. This is the 3 cities of refuge, which he's talked about before in Numbers. And yeah, I do believe Numbers was the only one he talked about it. But he's repeating it again. And then the property boundaries and the law concerning witnesses. Kind of touching back when I was talking about shouldn't just have one witness. So by this point, Moses is telling them about the refuge cities to set apart 3 of them for anyone who has killed to flee. So it says, for instance, if a man is cutting a tree down and the axe head slips off and kills that man not on purpose, these cities are for him, so no one can avenge his blood, for he is innocent, because it was an accident, of course. It says if the land grows, then add 3 more cities like this. So each time that your land grows, you need to continue to add more refuge cities. But if anyone takes a life on purpose and flees to one of these cities, then the elders are to send for him and to turn him over to the avenger of the blood. Then one verse speaks of property, that you shall not, or take, or property take you shall not remove a neighbor's landmark. So basically, if a neighbor puts a landmark, you shall not remove it, because that's their boundaries. Then Moses tells them that one witness shall not rise, but by the mouth of 2 or 3 the matter shall be established. If a false witness causes problems, pretty much, then the two shall stand before the Lord and the priests and the judges will listen. If they say it's false, then do to him as he thought you have done to his brother. You shall put away this evil. I'm so glad that Jesus came down here so we don't have to live by this verse anymore. Life for a life, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for a hand, and foot for a foot. Because that's the way they had to live back then. But Jesus coming in, we don't have to live that violent way anymore. So wrapping up Deuteronomy number 20 here. Um, and before I finished, I had messed up. I said there was in the last video I contemplated there was 36 chapters. There's 34 chapters in Deuteronomy. So I'm sorry I got that wrong. So the last part, because there is a really big chapter, I will probably break up in 7 and 7 because chapter 28 is like 4 pages long, pretty much, not lying. But anyways, Deuteronomy chapter 20 is the principles governing warfare. Then it is said to them, when you go to battle, don't be afraid. Because remember, when we were talking back then, they were afraid, and that's why they had to wander 40 years because of the spy report they had gave. Know that the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, is with you. The priest shall approach and say, do not be faint of heart, do not be afraid, do not tremble or be terrified because of them, for the Lord will save you. The officers say, what man is there who has built a new house and has not dedicated it? Let him go and return, lest he dies in battle, and dedicate it to another man. What man is there who planted a vineyard and has not eaten of it? Let him go and return home, lest he die in battle and another man ate it. You kind of see the parables and analogies that Moses is given here. The officers say few more than they say. What man is there who is fearful and faint hearted? Let him go and return to his house, lest the heart of his brethren faint like his heart. When officers don't, or when off, or the officers done, they will appoint captains of the armies. Then, when they when they get by the city to fight, offer peace to it. If accepted, and they open to you, then all the people there are under tribute to you and serve you. If they want war, then take the city. And once the Lord hands it over to you, strike every male with the edge of the sword. But all else, women, little kids, etc., are yours. But the cities of inheritance, you shall leave nothing breathing alive, from the Hittite to the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Also, during this time, don't cut down trees that produce food to besiege the city. So thank you guys for listening to this. I'm actually almost done reading Deuteronomy, so I'll probably get it out here pretty soon. I will not have a sermon this Sunday. I'm only preaching every other Sunday now, but I will be putting up Pastor Jeremy's. He's preaching about water baptism the proper way. And it really does need to be said because a lot of churches are not baptizing out of the proper formula that the Gospels give us. So God bless you guys. Like and subscribe, share these videos. 2021 has been a very good year for the Lord. Every year has been very good for the Lord, but I feel a lot of things are going to move for the Lord this year. I feel a lot of ministries that were in the start in 2020 that I've watched, not only mine, a few other people's. I think they're really going to flourish this year. So God bless you guys and stay safe.